Jeremy, we're starting 16 minutes late, and that's all on me. So we got a lot of stuff to cover in a short period of time to cover it. But I'm really happy to have you here, man. I get a little nervous because this is your domain. I don't know what I'm doing. Yeah. Every week I do these and I have no clue what I'm doing. I just have conversations and no structure, no prep, no nothing. And so I'm sure I'm going to learn a lot today when I talk to you.
Well, I'll tell you what, man, it's funny to say that because I feel like I'm trying to get on your level, man. Like I've learned so much from you and Jeremy and, a bunch of the guys we're connected to. It's helped our business grow a lot. So it's just good to chat again, man.
Yeah, of course. It's been a while. I can't remember the last time
years.
We actually got to chat and stuff. So it's awesome to get to do it in this format. So super excited for that. So I know you said we have a wide spectrum of stuff we can talk about today. And you said nothing off limits, which is always great when people say that. I won't push too hard. The first thing I'd say is like, so you've been in the podcasting space for a while. Like it's obviously blown up the last year or two. It's become a lot more popular, more mainstream. Like, do you think it's overcrowded? Like the reason, and I'll preface it by saying what I said before, like I only do this. Like the fact that people listen to it is cool, but if like nobody listened to it, it wouldn't really bother me. I'm doing this because it's like, it creates content our team can clip and use for social and all that good stuff. But I know there's a lot of people that are starting podcasts that are like, I want to be the next Joe Rogan. I want to make this a living, kind of like YouTube, right? I want to make a living off of this. And I get to a point where I'm like, I listen to a good amount of podcasts, but like, is it too crowded? Like, how do you stand out? It's a very different format than like TV or movies or things like that, where you have a lot of freedom to be creative. I feel like a lot of podcasts coming out are just like this, right? And there's only so many unique ways you can do interviews, or it's really the personality of the interviewer or the guest you're getting. Yeah. So I'm curious, just like what your thoughts are on just the market in general, people entering it, and the lack of kind of creativity and uniqueness.
Well, I'll just say, like, first off, the last number I saw, and this was towards the end of last year, is like 1.7 million podcasts out there. So that's a lot of shows. Yeah. Now, of that, like, I think 15% are active, and that means they produce a show every 45 days. So, like, just right off the bat, man, like, that's a significantly smaller number you're actually working with. And if you look at that versus blogs, if you look at that versus TV, if you look at that versus anything, that's actually a really, really small number. And then I think if you even go within that 15%, there's probably half of them that aren't like, phoning shit in, if you know what I mean. Like they don't show up. They don't expect the guests to like say everything. They don't show up with like 10 pre-written, like, fire round or lightning round or whatever bullshit you want to call it. Like they all have something similar, and they're very like unprepared. So I think like, to me, the thing that is really important to take a look at is making sure, like, number one, you're like super, super niched. And, not really caring as much about like, how many dollars I'm gonna get up this right away or whatever you're going to do about that. It's about building brand equity, and it's about really like connecting with the right people and getting seen and known. Cause you mentioned like Joe Rogan, like 1% of the podcasts out there account for 99% of the sponsor dollars. And one of those big podcasts is Joe Rogan. So I think most people shouldn't be thinking that, I'm going to go into this and it's going to be like that South Park episode. Gosh, I'm aging myself here, but probably about 15 years ago when YouTube first got big and they all thought they were going to make like the magical internet money because they had like the video go viral. It's not like that, man. Like, you have to figure out how this is going to be a part of what you're already doing and going to help you get more visibility and trust and stuff like that.
Yeah, it is crazy to think that there's such a huge demand by like our generation and younger to be in this market, right? Whether it's professional YouTube, professional influencer, professional podcaster. The problem though is like, this is going to sound really not offensive, but kind of mean, is like most people just aren't interesting or like don't have really anything to say.
It's funny, man. When I'm creating content, I'm like, God, I'm so uninteresting. It's why I suck at like Instagram stories and stuff like that. Cause I'm like, wow, my life's freaking boring.
No, but I think it's not even about like boring, right? Cause there's people like, so there's people that post the stereotypical stuff on social media that it's just as boring, right? Like it's like, just because you have fancy stuff and post, that doesn't mean it's not boring. It just means it's like, a rich person that's boring or a fake rich person that's boring. I mean, like, you have to have something to say and some level of passion in what you're saying. And I think that's the big difference, right? Is like, I'm not doing this to make money or even really to get people to even listen to. Like, I'm doing it because I want to have fun doing it. I think that's what makes, I'm not comparing myself to Rogue. It's like tiny fraction of like the 100th competitor to Joe Rogan. But like the reason why I think Rogan and those people, like the top guys, are so effective is like he started doing it years ago, a really long time ago, just with buddies, like sitting down, having a combo.
Yeah.
Like
he never really like gave a shit. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like he's just kind of there having a conversation, and it's not created to create an effect, or it's not created to impress somebody. It's like, I've heard him talk about this before. Like when he talked about creating the show, he's like literally like, I think they were high the first time they did it. He talked about like, wouldn't it be cool to talk to the smartest scientists out there? His buddy's like, yeah. So like, it's not like it took a lot of like forethought into this, but some of the best conversations come out that way, right? Like how many times have you been hanging out with your friends at a bar or something like that, and you get into like some super deep conversation and you're like, man, we should have taped that. Like that's exactly what a really great podcast is. And
that's why I don't like the structure. Like I don't like the putting everything into a box. And that's frankly why I stopped like doing podcasts in terms of like being the guest on them. One, just because it's obviously very time consuming, and that's one part of it. But the other part is just, I got tired of saying the exact same thing a bunch of times, right? Like, and I've talked to my team about that, honestly, because you'll go on a show something, because I that's something I do a lot as well, is I go on a bunch every week, and I actually like go out of my way to tell them like how much I liked the show when it was actually good. I'm like, holy shit, like this wasn't the exact same interview I've done 99 times. And I think that's important too, because it's people like that are actually trying and are actually creating something. Yeah, and not feeling the need that you have to drop these, like, I think we've gotten to this place now where people think they have to drop these like knowledge bomb. Like everything I say needs to be this like groundbreaking tip or strategy or fact or something. And frankly, it's like, I think what most people, like the most popular content out there, it's like, it feels authentic, it feels genuine. And then if they get value out of it and like learn stuff, that's kind of secondary. But the thing is, like, I need to feel an attachment. I need to feel something towards the person speaking. Otherwise I'm tuning out before you even get to that stuff. But it is interesting, like that there are so many people that still follow that format and that flow of like, I have the same questions, I ask the same guests, even though that guest has been on 30 shows and they've said that thing already. Like if you already, like I've shared the same Facebook tips on like 30 podcasts. And I'm like, why would you ask me that again? I just shared on this person's podcast that came out last week. Like, why would somebody listen to your podcast? Why would someone listen to your episode? But here's the thing, man. Like those are the exact same people that 8 years ago had a Hootsuite, and they'd send out the same 17 links to all 5 accounts at the exact same time all the time. They think it's just another channel, right? They're not interested in making something unique or special or different or interesting for it. And that's why I think like, I don't know if you know Dennis Yu, but he's been doing really, really well on Clubhouse recently, because he's just spending time on there and having tons of great conversations with people. And I think that's the important thing, is like, if you're going to embrace something, if it's going to be podcasting, if it's going to be Clubhouse, it's going to be YouTube, like embrace it and like really do something with it. Don't just treat this like, 2013's version of Hootsuite, where you're throwing out the same exact post on 17 channels with a link that doesn't show a link preview because it's on Twitter or something like that. You know what I mean? It's very true. So I want to talk about Clubhouse because that's an interesting topic.
I'm just kind of getting into it myself. I haven't really like done a lot on there.
Cool. So let's put a pin in that though, because I want to finish on the Rogan stuff.
Yeah, go for it.
Where do you think he goes from here? Like, I think one of the challenges of somebody like him is that part of what made him, I think, so incredibly popular and effective is that he's just like the every guy's guy. And just like, that's like a dude like me that happens to be talking to like Elon Musk, like, and Bernie Sanders, right? And they're just hanging out. And it was like raw, and there wasn't like a ton of, obviously a lot goes into it. Like even the last few years, I'm sure a ton went into it, but you don't see it. Yeah. But now that it's like Spotify, and now like, honestly, I barely listen on Spotify because it's like, I had to skip through 7 freaking ads of him. Well, I think that's the thing, like where he's going from here. I think that's the way this is going to change. I don't know how long their contract is. So I think whenever that is up, I think you're going to see him going back to just what he did before, being on all these different platforms and stuff like that. Reason being, there was a statement that came out earlier from an insider at Spotify that had mentioned like, hey, like having Joe on on here actually hasn't made us money. Like we've actually lost a lot on the ads. And it's not to say that, podcasting doesn't sell ads and stuff like that. Like
the way Spotify tried to set it up is they try to set it up like a traditional like music company A&R type of thing. And it's a different platform. It doesn't work like that. So I actually think you're going to see him going back to controlling all of his content again, because, you know, people do buy stuff from him and things like that, but Spotify is not seeing what they want out of it. So I think also at the same time, they didn't understand the industry they jumped into.
Yeah, because it's not authentic, right? It's like when you listen to a show on YouTube, his like long form stuff, like he would organically talk about products. He would organically bring things up. And I'm sure those companies saw a big boost in sales. Now it's like you get on there and it's, you know, the same 4 or 5 companies that are advertising. And it's like, you can just tell he's saying it because he's getting paid to say it. And I guarantee it's not, people aren't buying it because it's not translating. And you can skip through them. Like I just instantly skip through the first 4 to get to the episode. But I agree. I think whenever the contract's up, he either goes back to YouTube or whatever, or he just, I mean, hell, he has enough reach and audience and people in his community. Like start your own thing, right? Like start your own community, your own hub that you control. Because even with Spotify initially, they were threatening to like, we can't have him on our platform because he says some controversial things. Like, really, you paid him, you know, $100 million. You know who he is.
Yeah, if you get a chance, man. It's like 2 hours is a really long time, but like Joe Budden did a like 2 hour like this is why I'm glad I'm leaving Spotify thing when he finally because he was kind of the first one to get an exclusive deal. You get some really, really interesting insight when you hear Joe Budden listen to it. I'm like, wow, I don't think Spotify is going to go where they want to go with this. So if you get a chance, I would check that out.
Yeah, definitely going to check it out. And I agree. I think they probably approached it, like you said, just like they approach all these music deals, but it's again, a very, very different format of content, and the way it's monetized is different. So I think they're probably going to take some big write-offs, and then hopefully maybe they try to figure out something different.
Well, he said like even in their contract language, this is Joe Budden. He was saying that even their contract language is a little wild. Like they set these targets they had to get to like get bonuses and stuff like that. But then they got to the end and Spotify's like, well, it's streams versus downloads versus this versus that. He's like, we doubled the target. He's like, well, if we look at just streams, you didn't actually hit the target. So like found a reason to not pay him. And he's like, this is the problem why I got upset with the music industry. So I think unless they learn how to change with this new technology, you know, they're just going to get screwed, man.
Yeah, 100%. So yeah, I think it'll be super interesting to see where he goes. Cause I mean, his conversations are still so good. The core of what he does is still so great. And the guests that he has on, the diversity and stuff. But I think that format is being put in terms of what it's being wrapped in definitely does not fit his, it's like a really jarring juxtaposition of like corporate public company and then like anti everything that they stand for kind of in there. It's very, very strange, especially it's talking like big tech and all the, it's hard to take that seriously when it's like, but dude, you did $100 million deal with big tech. It's like this very weird thing where you're listening to him talk sometimes.
But you know what's pretty crazy? I don't know if you saw this. This news came out like an hour ago. The Google employees are organizing to form their own union because they're kind of upset that Google's been like censoring people, which is wild to me. So they're like trying to actually hold the company accountable. And I think there's good things and there's bad things about that, right? Like because you have some companies where like Spotify had a problem with some people that were like too social justice-y to a point. But I think when things start like jumping on our civil liberties, we got a problem. So I think that's kind of interesting perspective as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's that's a whole nother conversation. Let's dive into Clubhouse. let's after that, let's hit censorship and content, because I think that's a great topic, like a decentralization and where we're going there. But let's keep it in order before I lose that, because I lose my place. I'll just jump from place to place. And I know we have.
I'm just as bad, man. Don't worry about it.
We have a limited window of time. So what do you, as somebody that's I've been on it for maybe a month and a half, and I was on it maybe the first week or so, and then I don't have the time, right? People are on there like every minute, every day. I just frankly don't have the time. I'm curious, like what your initial thoughts are about it.
So it's interesting because it's like the first week I downloaded it was like the week of Christmas. So it's like, like we're opening Christmas presents. We're doing this with the family. Like that was the first week in like 4 years. I was like, I'm not going to work all week. So it was, like I just was trying to tune out of that. And my phone's over here like having a freaking seizure because I'm getting like notification. I'm like, wow, Clubhouse sucks. So I like turned all my notifications off. And then I finally had one of my friends text me like last week, and she's like, "Hey, I'm talking in this room. Come check it out." Blah blah blah. And interestingly enough, like I actually found it to be pretty cool. But I think the thing I've struggled with is something you and I were talking about earlier, like especially being, you know, like we have a team all over the country and whatever that handles most of the business. But like as a person, like, you know, I'm a dad, I have this going on, I have that going on. We live in a, you know, we're hopefully looking to move to Florida in the next year, but like I live in a small house and all this kind of stuff. So it's like, it's not really conducive to be on something where, you know, I could randomly have to talk from time to time. Like anything I do, I need to have scheduled out and know exactly that I'm doing it. So I don't know. I have to kind of figure out where it's going to fit in my life. I've seen a lot of friends that have like been doing really, really, really well with it. I honestly would like to know, like, what are they doing? How much time are they spending on it? Like, how is that working? Cause to me, it seems like a lot of time to be able to like do anything with it, man.
Yeah. That's where the ROI on time, right? I think that's what people like. I think people get so focused on like the numbers, right? Like the followers and stuff, and the maybe some of the big picture stuff that they forget just like, well, how much would I make if I spend this hour like doing X? How much would I make doing Y? And then like, how much do I think I'm going to make by being on this platform and having, you know, 10,000 followers? And I don't know how anybody, I mean, I've heard anecdotes, right? I've heard from certain people, they've sold this. I haven't seen any like hard proof of like people making lots of money. So I'm curious to see like what people's play is, because there's a lot of people on there that I know that are very successful, that I know run companies with a lot of people that like are busy people. And I don't know how they're like, what their companies are doing right now.
Yeah. I know like Grant Cardone's like spending hours on there. Tony Robbins has been on there a lot. Like, how do these people have like, and that's the thing I'm questioning, like, how do they have time to do it? Like, I don't know, maybe we're just in different phases of our business or whatever. Like, you know, maybe I should have more time to do. I don't know. Like, I just haven't really figured out where that fits, man.
Well, yeah, I think it's, you know, when you get to their level, obviously they have a lot more time because they're not doing the nitty gritty, but still like your time should be used for, you know, strategy, like there's higher level things. And that's what I think about. It's like, if I spent this time over here and I could help one of our e-commerce stores do an extra, you know, $100,000 this month, an extra $500,000 this month, like that seems way more valuable to me. Or even like doing a few more consulting calls at $1,000, $2,000 an hour. Like that seems way more valuable to me than spending hours on here to get 10,000, 20,000, 50,000 followers. So yeah, it'll be interesting. I think either it's going to be like Clubhouse is going to be the next big thing, and these early adopters are going to have they're going to have massive ways to monetize, just like people that are early on Instagram and all the other platforms, or it's going to be another, you know, Vine or another app where all these people just wasted an obscene amount of time and the app fizzles out and dies, which I
don't know about you, man. Like, but I still haven't been able to get into TikTok. I still haven't been able to get into like Snapchat. Like, I just don't see a point in them. So I don't know. Maybe I'm just like too old now or something. I'm in my mid 30s. Maybe I'm old. I don't know. I don't think
it's I have a hard time. I think just certain people, type of person you are dictates this. Like, I just have a hard time because it's not naturally who I am. Like, I just can't fake it. Like, it would require me so much effort and work to like do that and like be that person, put out that type of content that frequently that like I can't do it. I know there's lots of people that like, they're fine doing that. They're fine. Like, I'm going to put on a whole charade every day and spend a few hours. And this is somebody who's fictional person. And that's what they like to do and stuff. But it's like work. Like it's worse.
Well, I think you and I are pretty similar in the way too. Like, I don't know about you, but like sometimes I just want to do a project where I can just like close the doors and just code for hours. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm really good with like long, deep projects where nobody talks to me for a long period of time. And sometimes it's hard to do that with stuff like that. I don't know. It's just how I operate. It's not saying I'm like antisocial or anything. Like, I love people once I'm into things, but I like to really like kind of get in the nitty gritty on things. And, you know, I don't like distractions, I guess.
No, yeah. It's a weird place. It's a weird time we're living in. And I think it's just going to get weird in that, you know, we used to live in throughout history. Yeah. A small percent of people had influence, and they were, you know, either the most successful, the most educated, the most innovative, whatever it might be, and they had big audiences, and they wrote books, and they did TV shows, they did plays, whatever it might be, and they were able to get their message out. And people aspired to be that, but they couldn't get there. Like, there was a lot of layers to get to that point. And now it's just like, everybody, no matter their qualifications, their track record, not only wants to be that, but has the tools to try to be that. And I struggle with this personally, because I believe that it's great that like everybody has the opportunity to share their voice and be heard. Like that's really great. But on the other side of it, same thing with entrepreneurship, like everyone can start a business now super easily. I also think removing friction and making it too easy, it can also be a really bad thing. Cause I think it's like, it shouldn't be that easy, right? It shouldn't be that easy to like speak to that many people. Like there should be some level of, you need to be qualified and vetting and like, you need to put the work in, right? And I'm letting people understand that. They just want like the instant thing. Like if I just post the right video, the right funny thing, I'm going to be,
it's going to go viral and I'm going to be making the magical internet money. We just somehow we just end up right back on South Park.
And it's sad. It's sad because I think there's genuinely a lot of people who have that mindset. Like I view it as the like modern day, like a lottery ticket, right? Like even the lottery's still there. Like I went to the gas station the other day and there was 3 people in front of me that were, had like 35 scratch offs, changing them like, oh my God, why are you doing that? But it's the same thing. It's like people are addicted to that.
But it's like, well, there's kind of 2 things to that too. Like, and I think social media has been one of the real big problems with this is there's people that are like famous for just being famous. Like, and you kind of like, well, what do they do? What are they all about? Like what kind of change do they create or something like that? Like they're just famous for being famous. But I think the other kind of part about it is like, I don't know if you know this, but like right out of college, I taught high school for a couple of years. And I was a sociology teacher. And one of the lectures that I gave to my classes was like, because social media was super new at this time, but like, has social media made us less social, right? Like we're kind of like way over socialized now today, man. Like we talk too much, we communicate too much. Not to say communication is the bad thing, but at the same time, like we feel like we always need to be like attached to our phones and talking to somebody and doing whatever. Like it's made people kind of weird, man, because at the same time, like they're always interested in what other people are thinking and what they're doing and whatever they're doing. Like, be busy, build your business, do whatever it is. Like you don't need to always be focused on the social aspect.
Yeah, I agree. And so I guess the point I was just like, I don't know. I'm curious if you have thoughts of like where this goes, right? There has to be a point where there's so much transparency and everyone is just sharing everything that like you can't share anymore. I think we're already at the point where people are sharing stuff that nobody should care about. Like, I don't know how people think like this is something I'm doing right now that like I really need to document and share. It's like, no, it's like nobody can. 95% of the things people post aren't post worthy, right? Like, especially because now it's like stories, and the social media companies started realizing, hey, like, what if we created more and more formats that made it easier to share less valuable things because it's less friction and it's quicker and stuff. And it's like, that's the game. It's like how to remove the barriers and make people think that they need to share everything and give them the tools to make it super easy to share even the most mundane, boring things, in the hope that that one thing might be funny enough or strange enough or sad enough that somebody's going to watch it and share it. It's going to go viral.
Well, I think there's a couple parts to that, and because there's kind of two or three different things going on at once, right? Like you have one side, you have like censorship on social media. So you have a lot of people that are pulling out because they're like, oh, well, I don't want my voice to be quieted, and called fake news, whatever it may be. So that's kind of one part of it. You have the other side of it where people are kind of looking at this and they're saying, it's like with these stupid Bernie memes. It's like, when are people going to shut up? Like, I don't care. So I think at the same time, like you're having kind of two parts of people that are looking at it and they're pulling away because like, well, this stuff's stupid. Like, I really don't care about a lot of this stuff. And the other side, you have people that are saying like, and it's funny, these people may be close to the same side, but like they're saying like, if the voices I want to hear being quieted, why should I be here as well? So I think at the same time, we're going to see a lot more disruption in social media. I think we're going to see a lot more decentralization in social media. Like one of the interesting things I've been listening to a podcast called The No Agenda Show, and they have their own social network on like a Mastodon server. So it's like, I think you're going to see a lot more like, I guess kind of democratization in a way of social media. You know what I mean? Like, because people are realizing like half think it's stupid and the other part think it's like, well, if, the voices I want to hear aren't out there, why am I here anyway?
Yeah, which is challenging, right? Like this is where things ironically get worse with the intention, I think, by half the country to think they're making things better, right? And I try to have these conversations apolitically, but like if you're on the left right now the argument is that half the country, 80 million people or so, like what they're saying, the news networks that are showing their stuff, they're saying Fox, all these people, they're so toxic, so evil, and so bad that we need to basically remove them from mainstream TV, from social media, from all this stuff. The problem with that is like, even if you believe that, right? Let's say you genuinely believe that's true. And listen, there are percents of each group that are toxic and are evil and are bad on every side, in every faction, right? There's
yeah,
people.
Absolutely.
So, but let's say that's your goal. It's like, I genuinely believe that I want to do this because I want to stop that thought process. The problem is like, now you didn't stop anything. All you did is you remove those people from having any possibility of seeing other viewpoints, because now they're going to go to these siloed, decentralized communities that have no liberal or left users. It's all.
Well, that's like what happened with Parler, right? Like at a certain time, like it became an echo chamber. So then, like that's also the struggle. Like you need both sides to balance it out, because it, like, even you know what I mean. The right thinks the left's a little crazy, and the left thinks the right's a little crazy, but we kind of need each other so we don't go really crazy. You know what I mean? We're kind of a check on each other.
That's what's amazing, and I don't understand. Part of me doesn't. It thinks it's either just like genuine ignorance, or just they don't really believe that this is their goal, is to get rid of these things. Because like it's like, if you think that, not if you think, like, we all think that racism is bad and evil, right?
Right.
There are certain general concepts that most people agree are terrible and evil. There are people that are racist. Saying that those people, just like pretending they don't exist and saying they can't share anything, right? Putting them over here doesn't stop them. It doesn't change them. Like your goal, like my goal would be like, I would want to make people that are racist, not racist. That should be everyone's goals. Like I want to take people that are sexist or homophobic or racist or just evil. And what can we do to change their mind? What can we do to change their views? So that way, when they have kids, their kids don't have that same toxic viewpoint, right? But you can't do that by saying like, just putting them in a box and locking it and throwing it over here. Like they don't just stop, right? People don't just stop talking and thinking because you put them out of your line of view. And I think that's what a lot of people forget, is they think if I don't hear it, I don't see it, it doesn't exist. And that's not the way the world works.
Well, and it's the whole idea of like a tree falls in the forest, right? Like does it actually exist? But I think the deeper like problem here is like the information we're given, right? Because like people can't, like if you're given bad information, right? Like if you put the wrong information in a calculator, you're going to get the wrong information out. That's just how it works. Like if you put a wrong number in, you're not going to get the right answer. And like, I think part of the problem is the way like media feeds people information, right? Like it is, because like if you look at, I don't know what side of the political spectrum you're on, but if you look at, when Joe Biden ran for president, one of the things that he said is, there was the speech that Trump made about Charlottesville was like one of his motivating factors. And they kept talking about that, and the news played it, but they didn't play the whole clip. They just played the part that made Trump sound like an asshole. So, and I think that's part of the problem, is like, it's true if you listen to the first 7 seconds. If you listen to the full statement, it's not true. And I think that's what's really interesting, right? Like it's the same thing of, like you could take back in the days when we used to write papers in college, like you could take something and take the first 3 words in a sentence and it made something true. But if you finish the sentence, it shows that it's actually not true. And I think that's part of the problem, is there's this crazy amount of disinformation out there about a lot of things. And it makes it so we're not having the right conversations, like so that we can solve problems, right? If you're given bad information, you're not going to come to the right result.
And I think anybody a great book that like everyone should read is Hate Inc. by Matt Taibbi.
I love Matt Taibbi stuff.
It literally should be like required reading for everyone in the country, right? It should be like whoever's president, Biden should it should be an executive order. It's like I'm not a big fan of all executive orders, but like make that an executive order that everyone has to read that book, because it is so eye opening, whether you're on the right or the left. When you listen to this and you're like, this is a guy from the inside who he doesn't like Trump. He doesn't like the right, but he's speaking objectively. He's a pretty objective dude and saying, listen, Rachel Maddow and, Tucker Carlson, all these people, they're all the same. They're all their job is
they're
to
actors.
make you,
on either side, they're actors that are paid to read something.
Yeah, their job is to make you pissed. Like their job is to make sure that you are so angry and so emotional every single time they come on that you don't turn the channel and that you need to hear more, need to learn more. Because at the end of the day, just reading the news and being an objective journalist doesn't get the ratings. Like these,
right? Because they get more eyeballs, and then they sell you more pharmaceutical company ads, so they make more money.
Fox. I mean, Fox was the first company to figure that out. Right? Fox figured it out 30 years ago, whenever. And they created this new playbook where, hey, if we turn this into more of an entertainment show and we focus on a specific agenda, we're going to get a lot more viewers, a lot higher ratings, and we charge a lot more money for advertisements. And then CNN followed, MSNBC followed. And so I think people need to realize that, like, I don't care what your politics are, whether you watch Fox, whether you watch MSNBC, whether you watch CNN, that they are not telling you the objective facts. That every story, every article, everything they put out there is engineered to make you angry. Everything is engineered to make you hate the right or hate the left. There's no, they in these newsrooms now, like if you pitch a story and it can't be positioned as anti-Trump, pro-Trump, anti-Biden, pro-Biden, like it doesn't get pushed up the ladder. Like it just gets buried because it doesn't sell. And I think once you understand that, you can try to take like a step back and say, okay, listen, I might be a Republican, I might be a Democrat, I might have some of these values like socially or economically, but I can also understand like what I'm seeing in the New York Times, what I'm seeing on Fox, what I'm seeing the channels like is designed to piss me off. It's designed to make me hate somebody else. And that's
you know what I try to do, Max, because the thing you want to do too is you want to figure out like what can I do about this situation, like because like knowing it is good, but like what can you do about it is better. Like, and I guess this is because like I have a degree in history, so this is like just the way I think. Like I try to go look for primary sources around things. You know what I mean? Like I'm the weirdo that I go and I read congressional bills. I read executive orders. I try and go on like C-SPAN because you can get full audio that's not cut there. Like I try to educate myself enough so that I can make the right decision, whether, whoever it is wrong or right. Like your goal should be able to find primary sources so you can make an educated decision on something.
100% agree. I couldn't agree more on that. Like if right now you get all of your information from a single source and it's either Fox, MSNBC, CNN, or one of those, like, or the New York Times, Wall Street, or any of those, like you need to pick up other sources and ideally go direct to the source because then you can get it before it's spun. Right. But unfortunately that's work. Right. Most people, it's much easier to just come on TV.
Most people don't do that.
and most people, they're already indoctrinated. They already believe what they believe and they just want more. They don't want to change their view. Right. They genuinely believe because they've been fed it for years or decades that like my view on the world is factually right. Everyone else's is factually wrong. And therefore I need to continue to confirm that belief. So I'm only going to seek out information that verifies it. Any information that is counter to that, I'm going to figure out a way to make that wrong in some way. There's something about it that it's a lie, it's fake, it doesn't fit the narrative. I'm curious, like as a student of history, how long do you think mainstream media goes before they have to start bringing Trump back into the equation? Like just from a business model standpoint.
That's a really good point. You know what I mean? Because that's one of my friends was talking about that recently, like, because that's what's like giving them things to talk about for the last 4 years. I don't know. I think they're gonna drag out the impeachment for a while because they need to talk about that. Yeah. And now they're talking about Trump having a third political party, so they'll talk about that for a while. I don't know, man. Like, I think they're going to get bored of not having him. You know what I mean? Because it's like,
they're literally talking about like, and I'm not even necessarily like, politically, I'm pretty down the middle. I would consider myself
same here.
Fiscally conservative, socially liberal. But like you watch these press conferences now and it's like the other day they were talking about like Biden's favorite ice cream flavor. It's like they don't have anything to talk about. It's just like, let's talk about his ice cream collection. Let's talk about his watch collection. Let's talk about it's the first rescue dog in the White House.
Yeah, and people got offended that he has a Rolex, by the way. They were like mad.
Yeah. He has a Rolex but it's like at some point the execs at CNN, MSNBC, these networks can be like, listen, people are not watching. People don't care. Like it's boring now. Yeah. Nobody cares. We need that. I think they got addicted to it for 4 years of record profits.
The one really interesting thing, man, is I think that Trump was somebody that was so polarizing he actually changed how media cover things. And I think that's something we may be dealing with for a little bit until they kind of get their shit back together.
It's very true. There's never been a time in history where for a long stretch, let alone years, every single news story basically put out was about a single individual, right? Like pretty much for 4 years, almost every single news story put out was either Trump, this is Trump's fault, Trump did something bad, Trump did something good. It's like, there was nothing that was about just like other people, other things. It was just like unbelievable. I mean, people will be studying it for a very, very long time. What's happened in the last 4 years. And I don't know how
I agree.
Fix them, because some of it's like changed the framework of how media works. It's changed the framework of how certain institutions and organizations operate. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see like if they can put the genie back in the bottle, like if the media companies can stabilize and just move forward with relatively kind of lukewarm news that's not super controversial, or it's just about the facts and just regular.
Well, and I think that's part of the problem, because this goes back to what you and I were just talking about. Like, I think like if you look at in the last 4 years, Fox has had some of their highest ratings ever. CNN's had some of their highest ratings ever. So like, well, shit, this works. How do we do more of this? So I think that is something we have to be concerned about, like how biased or unbiased is their information. Like, you know what I mean? Like, because you look at Fox, they're like, woo, Trump's awesome, go Trump. And you have the other side and they're calling him Hitler and a fascist and everything else. So it's like, dude, how did we get here?
Yeah, it's wild. From like you've hit it on a few times for like censorship and stuff. From somebody that does a lot of podcasting and helps people put out content and stuff. What are your thoughts on what's happening on kind of mainstream platforms right now in terms of content distribution? And do you think it continues? Do you think people continue to like diversify into these smaller platforms that are decentralized and are dependent on Amazon and Facebook and Google?
So I think you're going to see more decentralization. Like, I don't know if you know who Adam Curry is, but he used to be a VJ in MTV. He was one of the first. He was actually the first guy to podcast. He's the nickname is the Podfather. But I listen to his podcast like twice a week, which is great, called the No Agenda Show. And he actually built a platform called Podcasting 2.0 because he's trying to, make it so a lot of people aren't relying on big tech, because I think to a certain standpoint, like, we are too reliant on big tech, because they've been saying, oh, repeal Section 230, do this, do that. And I think people don't understand that argument actually doesn't fix anything, because the way platforms are currently operating is if Section 230 didn't exist, right? Without Section 230, censorship would be worse. You know what I mean? Because then they'd actually be liable for whatever you said. So what they're actually doing is they're daring the government to do something, and they know the government won't. So like we're in this weird, like kind of I don't know, like Alexander Hamilton, Aaron Burr, like draw at each other, So it's like, it's kind of this weird standpoint. So I think the real solution is to building other platforms. Cause I mentioned Parler before, like, it was a little bit of an echo chamber, but at the same time, they have the right to say what they want to say. And you look at, they got deplatformed by Apple. They got deplatformed by Google. They got deplatformed by Apple. And so like when it gets to the point where people can't say anything, like in this kind of new public square we have, like it's weird, man. So I think comes down to more decentralization and, companies like Gab that own all their own servers and stuff like that. So I think it's kind of interesting to see where it goes and kind of follow the narrative for a bit.
Yeah, because we're at a point too where it's, I would have no problem personally if everyone kind of had the same standards, right? Like I think that's what's pissing a lot of people off is that like the argument being made by Tim Cook and Google and Amazon and all these companies that basically shut Parler down as a company in a 24-hour period was that the coordination and communication of the Capitol Hill riots happened there. And they're accurate. There were people there that did coordination and posted about it, right? Parler happens to not be $1 trillion company, so they don't have advanced algorithms that can remove and use AI and stuff. They have a team of human moderators that flag things. But that's fine. If that's your standards, like if anybody uses your platform to coordinate a crime or violence, then you basically shut the company down. But then you got to shut down Twitter and Facebook and every other company, Verizon, right? Because people like it's come out. Sheryl Sandberg basically lied and said, "Hey, it was all the fringe sites. Nobody really used Facebook for this." And then what was it, like Media Matters, which is a super left-leaning organization, came in and said, well, no, actually there's like hundreds of groups that are still up where they plan this, and there was tens of thousands of posts. So like, but Facebook's too big, right? They have the luxury of having their own servers. Nobody can shut them down. So we're at this weird point where like,
well, and I think part of the problem too is like also like how they're doing their moderation too. I don't know if you saw this morning that Twitter introduced their new moderation platform. It's called something Bird. I forget what the hell it's called, but it's going to be a crowdsourced moderation model. That's just going to be crazy because you're going to have mobs that are going to be like, well, I don't like that guy. All my friends, let's go attack him and say it's fake news.
Yeah, it's going to backfire.
Birdwatch is what it's called.
Yeah, that's going to backfire in a tremendous fashion. I mean, it's because you have these groups that exist just to shut people down. Like there's literally people that exist in this world today, and their full-time job is just like, I want to find dirt on somebody and ruin someone's life and like make sure they don't exist. And that's pretty insane that we live in that day and time right now. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I think you're gonna have to decentralize. You're gonna have to host your own stuff. You're gonna have to make sure you're not dependent on, Amazon, Facebook, Apple to run your business. Because even companies like Spotify are dependent on Apple, which is crazy.
Yeah. There's two books that if you haven't read them, man, I would check them out. Like one being #deleted by Allum Bokhari. It talks about like what happens when big tech does that to people. The other being Don't Burn This Book by Dave Rubin. Also like two really good books to kind of check out in that.
Yeah, I know Rubin's created locals.com and a few other, he's trying to create a platform that's kind of safe and people can operate in there without being dependent on other people. So it'll be interesting like this time next year to see where things are a year post-Trump, post all this craziness, if it's gotten worse, if it's gotten better, if it's stabilized. But I think, the smart move is to decentralize, to kind of de-risk and have contingency plans, because it's crazy what's happening on all these platforms right now. So I know we have like 3 minutes left. I know we condensed this, and there's so much I want to talk to you about, but we'll have to do another.
I feel like this could have went for hours, man.
Yeah, we'll do another one. But before we wrap it up, where's the best place people can come check you out, learn more about what you guys do, and specifically what you guys do? I mean, we talked about podcasting specifically, but like not like growth strategies and hacks and stuff like that. I know you guys help people grow their brands. So if you want to share kind of what you guys do, where people can go.
Yeah, so we're really a PR agency with the podcast industry. We help people get placed on the right podcast, coach them what to say, and then teach them about content repurposing. So we're over at commandyourbrand.com. If they want to check out my podcast and anything else that I'm doing, that's over at jeremyryanslate.com.
Awesome, dude. Short and sweet. I love it. Well, it was a blast getting to catch up with you again. And like I said,
absolutely,
we'll have to reschedule a second version of this, an extension of this, because I know there's a lot more that we could have spoken about in each one of these topics.
Awesome, man.
Well, appreciate it. Have an awesome day, and we'll talk soon, and I'll see everyone next week on our next episode. Thanks, guys.